Good morning. This is Talk Back to Television, and I'm here with Lou Borelli. And Lou, I need to hear your favorite Chuck Dolan story.
Well, Rick, it goes back decades. As a 22-year-old cable executive, and I use the term executive loosely, I was part of a franchising team for UA Columbia, which at the time was attempting to gain franchises and build out Southern Westchester County. I was a local programming manager, and so our local commitment was important. Our only competitor for the first dozen or so was Cablevision Systems out on Long Island. So you had Chuck Dolan, you had his entire cast of characters, Kofalt and Sweeney and everybody else, John Tata. And so we would be in these council rooms giving presentations, and it always seemed to get really smoky during my part of the presentation. And as it turned out later, John Tata, so this is back in the day when you could actually smoke indoors.
Yep,
And
sure.
Tata loved big, stinky cigars. And so what I came to find out, because I was the youngest guy up there by probably 10 years, maybe more,
Yeah.
was that there was a bet going on to see if they could get me to puke or to get sick by just blowing smoke, because we all sat like close proximity. And it was years later that I was in a sports channel booth at a Mets game, and Chuck was there and John Tata was there, and Tata walked up to me and he says, "You cost me a lot of money." He says, because every time we would go in, it'd say $20, whoever can make the guy puke. And Chuck was collecting the money because I never puked. Um, it was a lot of fun. But the one thing I want to leave people with is people don't realize how creative Chuck was. I mean, yes, we've all heard he started HBO and all that. But here's one other thing. After we effectively won the franchises in Westchester, he went after Area 9 in Fairfield County, Connecticut hard and won. Here's what he understood: one bite at the apple. If you were a resident in the very upscale communities on the Connecticut shoreline and you called to get cable service, you could not buy it over the phone. You had to have an appointment with a door-to-door salesman who came to your home and effectively sold you what it was that they thought would best serve you. It's why they had the highest ARPU in the industry. They had by far the highest high-speed data penetration in the industry, because you had to see a person in person. Think about that for a second and how life has changed.
That's pretty
Yeah.
amazing, buddy.
Yeah,
No,
very cool.
so much of the business has changed now. I can go in and add and subtract anything with one click of a
Hmm.
button.
Yeah,
Maybe there's something to learn from that. All right,
yeah.
guess what, Lou Borelli? Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate that. This will all run next week. Bye
All
bye.
right. Thanks, Rick.
Good morning. This is Talk Back to Television, and I can't tell you how much I've already been laughing with Sherry Brennan telling her favorite Chuck Dolan story. So, Sherry, the show is yours.
Thank you. So this is a funny story. Um, when I was at Cablevision in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, and at that time, Mr. Dolan, we would not call him Chuck, Mr. Dolan and his son Jim were both at the company and both very active in the company. And I had interactions with both of them on occasion. But the funniest story did not happen to me, is something that I heard about, which had to do with the fact that the company was traveling, sending executives back and forth into the city from Long Island for meetings, and traffic can be very time consuming. So they started to use a helicopter to shorten those trips. Which was galling if you had to drive into Long Island from the city, get on a helicopter and go to the city for a meeting, get on the helicopter and come back and then drive home,
Got it.
which I
Yep.
did a couple times. But in any event, the funny part was that the neighbors weren't too happy about the placement of this helipad, which had not been very active heretofore. So they started a campaign to get that helipad moved. The story that I heard, did not see, but I'm pretty sure is true, is that Mr. Dolan had special bumper stickers printed up himself, which masqueraded as bumper stickers printed by the neighbors protesting
Yeah.
this helipad, and would sneak into the executive parking lot and stick one on the back of his son's car, which his son couldn't figure out for a while. Who is doing this to me? Thinking, of course, that it was one of the neighbors.
Sure, sure, yeah, yeah.
But when he got, he has his own tricks up his sleeve. So he was able to install a camera and watch and see who, in fact, was coming to stick
And it was
the
his
thing on
dad.
his car, figured out it was his dad. And in something of retribution, again, not sure I actually saw this with my very own eyes, but the retribution that I heard about is that he got some guys to come in over the weekend and drywall over the door to his father's office so that when Mr. Dolan came in on Monday morning, there's just a wall where he was supposed to enter his office.
Good Lord in heavens. Okay, well, you know
So
what? That's
not
the
sure if
best
that's the
one we've
lighter.
heard so far. All
Oh,
right.
thank you.
All right. Sherry Brennan, that's a great laugh for it is now a Friday morning and it'll be Thursday when this airs next week. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your sharing that story with us.
Myth or legend or fiction or fact, I'm not sure, but yes, it was a great story. It was fun
All
to
right.
be there.
Thank you, kiddo. Bye-bye. Good morning. This is Talk Back to Television, and I'm unbelievably thrilled to be here with Nora Ryan. Nora,
And
how are you?
I am unbelievably thrilled to be here with you again, Rick. And it's like we never stopped meeting in the hallway. Here we are having yet another conversation.
And and there you go. Okay. And today you're going to tell us your favorite Chuck Dolan story. So, Nora, it's your show. What do you got to say?
Yeah, it's a small moment. And 20 years later, it lives with me. So it's more about the heart and soul of Chuck than the big event. But he, of course, the pioneer who invented home box office, who created this gold standard of cable system in Cablevision, and his innovation and drive for innovation, even as the industry matured, he continued on focusing on highly targeted populations, serving in language content to the many different populations in New York City, and then designing an entire lineup for high definition as that technology emerged. And one day, my boss at the time, Josh Sapan, had said to me, Mr. Dolan is he's interested in knowing what kind of channels we might be able to offer or develop for his new satellite. And I looked through the libraries of American movie classics and Bravo and the other things that we had. And I came back, I think we could do two, maybe three channels. And Josh said, he's going to want more than that. And by the end of that summer, we had created an entire basic package, a lineup of 21 channels in high definition. The man thought big. You didn't
Oh,
do it small. If you jumped in, you jumped in all the way. And we had at that point, by the end of the summer, we had all the basics. We had the movies and sports and news information. We had the basics. And there was one last concept that was really an outlier, kind of a fringe concept: high definition art. Yeah, exactly. That look on your face was, I loved the idea, but I knew it was pretty fringe. And so I went to meet with him in person, because this was not an email or just a deck I was going to send him. And I went to share it with him in person. And after I kind of outlined it without missing a beat, he looked at me and he said, "Now that's just the kind of idea I was hoping you'd bring." And I, I know this is not the big story you're probably looking for, but can I tell you, 20 years later,
You remember
that
that.
memory lives on and warms my heart and inspires me because really, okay, he created the industry we all grew up in, but really the value, the lesson I got from him was the what really makes for effective collaboration. He was the best listener ever. You're talking to him and he's looking at you and you know he is taking in every word. And I'm thinking to myself, he's probably a few steps ahead of me, and yet he is taking in every idea as I lay it out. And more importantly, that validation. If you want effective collaboration, you really want to lean in and listen, and you want to validate your partners where possible. So he inspired me. It was the most exciting, probably the most fun summer of my career to be sitting with Chuck Dolan designing a basic cable lineup. But as silly as it probably sounds, I still run those words back to me and I see his face and him leaning in. Now, that's just the idea, the kind of idea I was hoping you'd bring.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, right. So a small moment, but lives on 20 years later. He built an industry, he inspired a generation, and I think about him every day.
There you go. Well, Nora Ryan, last time we worked together was the previous century. And nearly 40 years ago, for God's sakes. But
I think so.
I'm still learning from you. So thank you.
And back at you, Rick. I'm still loving being a part of your conversations. I really appreciate this.
There you go, everybody. And this will start airing next week. Bye-bye.
Okay.